let me talk quickly about Milo Yiannopoulos and throw my little comments on this. This is something I really didn't want to talk about, I was just going to let pass, and now it's something that I really do want to talk about. I feel I've got to have my little say on this because every fucker else has, and it's kind of put a bit of a smile on my face looking at the kind of polarised responses. On the one hand, there are clearly a group of people that just couldn't fucking wait. They were falling over themselves to jump on his coffin lid and make sure that all the nails are nice and watertight there. They've got a lot of grievances with him, and they were just waiting for him to come unstuck. And at the other side, as far as I'm concerned, there are a lot of people who, it seems to me that their defence of him is pretty much a knee-jerk defence. They've defended him on these no-platforming grounds when it was relevant, and now seemingly they're just defending him because they feel motivated, like we've got to defend this, because if we don't, we're somehow going to lose, as if this is another free speech issue. It isn't. I've listened to the things that he said that are being objected to. I find them objectionable. He's entitled to his opinion, he's entitled to his views, and the chance to express it. And when he says things about the fact that the age of consent being 16 or wherever it is, wherever you are, is arbitrary, of course it is. He's entitled to feel about what's happened to him however he wishes to fucking feel about it. But some of the trivial ways, that some of the sort of very light-hearted ways he's dealt with subjects of great gravity and of sexual assault, laughing it off in a more general way, is abhorrent as far as I'm concerned. And yes, he's deserved a lot of criticism. And if you're going to be a public figure, these things are going to be brought up, and there's no getting away from it. Has it deserved quite the level of outrage that it's got? No, it hasn't. But here's the thing, and this is my position really, I struggle to be outraged in either way, right? He's a shit stirrer. A lot of what he says he doesn't believe. I know some atheists are like, he says some terrible things about atheists. He's a shit stirrer. He doesn't believe half of what he says. And this is why I struggle to be outraged in either way. He is somebody very much lives by the sword and dies by the sword. I don't know if he's kept saying this all the way through, but his standard line earlier on in his very, very meteoric rise to fame is that he's a provocateur. This is just what he does. If he said something that's outrageous, that maybe is a little bit over the top, oh, well, I'm a provocateur, as if that makes it all okay. He is somebody that how he has achieved this meteoric rise is by manufacturing outrage and then banking publicity on the back of it, right? That is how he has gained his publicity, by manufacturing outrage and profiting from it. But that is a game of Russian roulette when you play that. And eventually the chamber's going to come round that you don't want to come round. And that's what's happened now, is that a bit of outrage has been manufactured that has spun out of proportion as every other bit has. But on every other occasion, he's fucking profited from it. And this is a situation that he hasn't profited from. Now, am I going to feel particularly sorry for him? No, I'm not going to feel sorry for him at all. That's the game that he was playing, right? And so I really couldn't give a crap about it. You play that game, it's a dangerous game. You're probably going to end up trampling over a few other people while you play it, but eventually you're living by the sword, you're dying by the sword. That wrong chamber's going to come round on that gun, you're going to get shot in the fucking face. And that is what has happened to him. Now look, even with all that said, if Milo Yiannopoulos was somebody who I felt really had something intellectual to add, right, there was going to be some great fucking loss, then I still might feel the need to defend him. Bill Maher is on Bill Maher's show, of course, quite recently, I think, and Bill Maher likened him to Christopher Hitchens. Presumably when Christopher Hitchens was alive, not to the corpse Christopher Hitchens. Look, if Christopher Hitchens was still alive and this was happening to Christopher Hitchens, I would feel motivated to defend Christopher Hitchens to some extent, whatever he'd said, because it would be a great loss to the discourse to lose Christopher Hitchens. And that's not because I happen to like what Christopher Hitchens says, even though I almost always do. I don't like what his brother Peter Hitchens has to say very often, but I defend Peter Hitchens for the same reason, because I think Peter Hitchens has something intellectual to add, even when you don't agree with him. I don't find Milo has anything to add other than vacuousness. I've defended him in the past. I defended him recently over the University of Berkeley riots because cunts acting like that, forcing you out of a talk, is something we need to rail against. Whether it's a vacuous cunt that's being knocked out of giving a talk, or whether it's somebody with a bit more intellectual currency. I argued his course vigorously when the University of Manchester no-platformed him and Julie Bindel after they'd already been invited by one of their representative bodies, right? I argued his case because that's a really important thing, I think, that we fight that. But hell, I mean, he's not really got anything worthwhile particularly to say, or at least when he has something worthwhile to say, there's 1,000 fucking people that can say it better. So it's no great loss. And like I say, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to get particularly head up about what he said because he's a troll. He's a bullshitter. He says things for effect. But at the same time, I'm not going to defend him from press expounded, hyperbolized outrage because that has been his stock in trade. That is what has got him where it is, and it's just turned around and bitten him in the arse. Do I give a shit about that? No, I don't. Okay, that's what I wanted to get out there. Interested to know what you think.